Plexus Cobra and the PXG prophecy. This morning in Sedona was like no other day. The great butterfly migration had already begun in Mexico by the time Sara opened her eyes, and somehow they'd all found her. Her studio wasn't a workspace anymore. It was a cathedral of wings, a living library for every old monarch that had ever ruled the sky. They clung to curtains, perched on paintbrushes, drifted through the sunbeams as if they carried messages too delicate for human ears. And then, as she pulled back the curtains of her personal solar plexus studio, she froze. An outline of butterflies pressed to the glass in the perfect shape of a key. The same brass key she'd worn around her waist for so long she'd forgotten what it was for. But with morning grog still in her eyes and no stardust tea yet in her system, she ignored it, dropped into downward dog, and paid no attention to the prophecy stuck to her window. A light touch landed on her lower back, just above the crystal chastity belt, like a butterfly dancing on her spine. And in that moment, she did what only a true solar plexus queen would do. She rose into a no-hands headstand, her body elongating like the ancient one from Doctor Strange. For the first time in history, the belt slipped free, sliding over her head and hitting the cedar yoga mat, not with a clatter, but with a hiss. It coiled and shifted into a massive king cobra, wrought from crystal and brass. Its hood flared, its tongue tasted the air, ready to strike. Panic, sadness, and shame washed over her, the same feeling she'd had as a 4-year-old when she dropped her stardust banana split face down into the desert sand. Tears ran down her inverted face, trickling through her crow's feet like molten lava, filling every crease in her forehead like a map, before she finally broke. In movements unseen on this plane, she flowed from the no-hands headstand into a perfect half-moon salutation, but the cobra shifted into a praying mantis attack stance. She dropped into a hidden tiger, crouching dragon glide, finishing in a drunken monk fighting pose. Then, with the elegance of an ancient Japanese fighting house, she struck first, a lion paw attack, only to have the mantis counter with the octopus of time tentacle wrap. In seconds, the key was around her neck again, the chain biting into her jugular, burning red hot from the coiled solar plexus energy. She yanked it to her ear, and what began as a faint hiss sharpened into one word, F-O-R-E. She'd never heard it before, but instinct carried her to the ancient wardrobe in the corner of the studio. She turned the key, and the doors opened to reveal not shelves, but a pyramid draped in tennis skirts, Lululemon leggings, sports bras, and jackets. A grand prize she'd manifested 2 quarters ago. But now, she looked at it with absolute disgust. Every seam was stitched in a sweatshop by children working for pennies. Nothing ethical or local about it. Nothing in common with the queen of nude yoga who never wore bras because of her nipple sensitivity. As she stood there, mocked by the labyrinth of lycra, a hate-fueled rage rose that had no place in her sacred studio, and with one sweeping kick, she sent the pile flying. Tennis skirts crumpled into corners, sports bras tumbled like fallen birds, leggings slithered into shadows, and the last piece of lycra hit the ground, revealing what had formed the pyramid all along. Her own custom set of PXG's newest top-of-the-line golf clubs. Hanzo Hattori shafts, one-of-ones. A Scotty Cameron putter forged from the core of Mother Earth herself. At her feet lay a chocolate bar wrapped in shimmering foil that scattered constellations across the cedar floor, embossed in gold script. Pure chips of galaxy glass embedded in every bite. The foil crinkled like it was breathing as she peeled it back, revealing obsidian dark chocolate flecked with Milky Way shards. And beneath it, an invitation, open quote, the first annual Sedona Crystal for Kids 4-man unisex golf tournament, close quote. In absurdly fine print, open quote, unisex includes women. We knew if it said 4-man scramble and not unisex, Sara wouldn't go, close quote. From the corner of the room, something flickered. A man in a faded battude. Back to the Future baseball cap, brim pulled low to hide his face, holding a 1991 Sony digital camcorder. The red record light blinked. He didn't speak. He didn't move. Just filmed. And as her eyes met his, the corner of his mouth curled in the smallest, most knowing smile before he gave a single nod, as if to say, you've just been chosen. The Line Chalice Country Club sat in the heart of Sedona like it had been built for gods who demanded 18 holes and a back 9 of worship. Membership was more myth than reality. The kind of thing whispered about at helicopter pads and in private sauna rooms, never spoken aloud in a public dining area. You didn't apply to join. You were invited if your name appeared in the board's ancient leather-bound ledger, or if someone on the inside paid a shaman to astral project it there. The initiation fee was obscene, 8.88 cents million, because 8 was the infinity vibration number, and also because they could. Monthly dues could bankroll the GDP of a small Pacific island nation, but here they were called an energy alignment contribution. You paid not to belong, but to exist inside their frequency. Every blade of grass on the fairways drank from an irrigation system rivaling the aqueducts of Rome at the height of its empire. The water came straight from the Hoover Dam, and for 8 years, the club had been under scrutiny for bleeding it almost dry, ignoring every drought restriction in the southwest. The course itself was pure spectacle. Bunkers of crushed rose quartz to amplify intention, greens manicured to put Augusta National in therapy, and every hole named after some mythical object. The sword in the stone, the grail, the 9th crystal skull. Practice balls were polished moonstone. Caddies were cloned alpacas wearing embroidered vests, humming soothing tones as they followed you. Dress code was law, short skirts for women, collared shirts, closed-toe shoes, enforced with a zeal that bordered on religious. That's why it became the scandal of the morning when Sara from Sedona rolled in wearing bright orange shoes she hadn't touched in 24 years. The dress code enforcers descended like carrion birds with clipboards, ready to haul her to the pro shop for a $2,000 emergency outfit upgrade. But De Beers needed her for this event. Badly. Her presence was already baked into the marketing for the first annual Kids Without Crystals charity tournament. And without her, half the donor list would ghost. In an emergency boardroom huddle, the ruling came down. For today only, the orange shoes are considered ceremonial footwear. Sara smirked, strolled past the enforcers, and headed straight for her cart. The Kids Without Crystals Foundation had been formed back in the Clinton-Gore years, one of Al Gore's prized jewels before he left office, a Sedona-based non-profit helping children discover their personal gemstone destiny. But there were whispers, always whispers, of something deeper and darker. Some claimed De Beers was using it to corner the crystal market the same way they had the diamond trade before the next global wave of spiritual awakenings. The field for the tournament was stacked. 18 invite-only teams of billionaires, spiritual guides, shadowy philanthropists, and apex weirdos. Sara's foursome was a fever dream. Nelly Korda, world's #1 female golfer. John Diamond Hands Del Vecchio, retired commodities shark with the best short game money can't buy. And a man everyone suspected but no one could confirm was Elon Musk, face hidden behind Tom Ford sunglasses, an old floral mask, and a dust-caked bandana. The only real clue was that every time he stepped up to a tee, Starlink 9.0 rippled faintly through the sky. Then there were the Johnson brothers, Kelly and Kevin, playing together. Legends in the Lockheed Skunk Works world. They arrived not in carts, but in hovering galactic finder prototypes. Black, silent, super stealth ships that never touched the ground. After a slow, menacing flyover, they stopped mid-air above the clubhouse, emitted a resonant hum, and beamed themselves to the first tee in twin columns of cobalt light. Without breaking stride, they each pressed a metallic chip on their lapels, collapsing the prototypes into geometric light patterns that streamed into their shirts. That's when unconfirmed Elon snapped. "That's cheating," he barked. "Those are Chappie-class hover prototypes. I wasn't allowed to bring one of my Cyberbeast caddies." Before the murmurs could spread, the rules officials stepped in, voice calm but unyielding. These matters are covered in the revised Crystal Chalice Invitational bylaws, the same updated rules that approved Sara from Sedona's ceremonial orange shoes also permit cybernetic and or non-terrestrial partners, including the Kelly Johnson cyborg team. Elon's muffled rant fizzled into an irritated headshake. Sara leaned on her cart, enjoying every second. Then Crispin Vale took the stage. The De Beers envoy, cream linen suit sharp enough to slice quartz, lapel pin cut from a star. His voice was a silk-gloved handshake. "On behalf of De Beers and from the very bottom of our hearts, the bottom of our corporate hearts, we thank you for your participation in this most sacred of philanthropic endeavors. This is for the children. The children who must walk to school every day in the snow. Uphill, both ways, with no jackets, no gloves, no warm tea to greet them. Children who need something more than shelter, more than warmth. They need crystals. Crystals to guide their young souls. Crystals to align their weary hearts. Crystals more than anything. A pause so long it almost became awkward. A dabbed tear, a single hesitant clap that grew into a thunder of applause. The rules official raised the ceremonial mallet, a driver head made of solid crystal, and struck the bronze gong beside the first tee. The chime rang across the entire course, bouncing off red rock cliffs and startling a heron from the rose quartz bunker on hole 3. This, he declared, is a shotgun start. Carts hum to life, gold-plated, solar-powered, each with scent diffusers and speakers pumping a playlist of Enya, Phil Collins and whale song. Cart girls, the highest paid staff in the club, out-earning the pros, darted between them, balancing champagne flutes and ahi poke sliders. Sara slid into her cart beside Nelly Korda, orange shoes glowing in the sunlight. Unconfirmed Elon adjusted his bandana in the back. Del Vecchio twirled his wedge like a duelist testing balance. Across the staging area, the Johnson boys hovered toward their starting hole, their invisible field gliding over the cart path as if the earth's pull no longer applied to them. Crispin Vale watched it all with that immaculate, unreadable smile, murmuring into a hidden mic. Above them, Starlink 9.0 flickered faintly in the blue. The signal was live. The tournament had begun. Let me know. The club didn't just manicure its fairways, it engineered them. Each hole was a geometric masterpiece, cut into massive, flawless hexagons that stretched out like a green honeycomb under the Sedona sun. It was Skynet turf technology at its most ridiculous, with irrigation channels rivaling the aqueducts of Rome and water bills that had been bleeding the Hoover Dam dry for the last 8 years. Even from a drone's eye view, the layout looked less like a golf course and more like a coded message to alien civilizations. On the par 3 sixth, the closest to the pin contest hole, sponsored by Skynet defense contractors, the chaos began. Sara from Sedona, still thinking Nelly Korda was just the prettiest golf ballet she'd ever met, floated into a cross-legged Buddha hover on the tee box to align the group's chakras before even touching a club. While Nelly took her practice swings, John Diamond Hands Del Vecchio bounced around like a middle schooler meeting his first crush, gushing about how he'd watched all her tournaments. Elon, who was not Elon, drifted over in his Tom Ford's pirate bandana and dust-covered Coachella disguise to toss her a wink and say, "I just got your Sports Illustrated issue last week," like he wasn't the richest man in the galaxy. Sara, unimpressed, focused on the pin, and without even swinging yet, manifested a hole-in-one. A metaphysical ace. Nelly, still clueless to what just happened, slapped Sara on the ass in celebration, the air around them smelling faintly of patchouli oil and fresh-cut fairway. Before the buzz even died down, the group cruised to the next hole, where the Johnson boys and their busted chappy bots were teeing off ahead. Elon, who had only entered the tournament for the pleasure of stalking the Johnsons from behind, saw his moment. The grudge ran back to the late 90s, when they'd blocked his first attempt to infiltrate the defense network. As they walked off the tee, he slid a cyberball into place, Starlink 9.0 rippling through the sky above. The crack of contact sounded like Thor's hammer hitting the surface of Jupiter. The ball traced a perfect beam through the Sedona sky and pegged Kelly Johnson square in the neck. But for the record, he did whisper 4. The Johnson boys called for an immediate review. Skynet drones swarmed in, replaying the scene in ultra-high frequency audio. Elon's whisper was confirmed. No penalty, just a warning and a slap on the wrist from officials who knew better than to actually penalize billionaires. Still, Sara wasn't having it. "This isn't right. You all are killing my aura. We cleanse now." She stopped the group on the tee box, ordered everyone, even Elon, to remove their shoes, and formed a barefoot circle on the perfect green hexagons. Crispin Vale, De Beers' silk-voiced PR oracle, wandered in from nowhere, Italian loafers off in seconds like he'd been summoned. The hum started low, almost imperceptible. Whispers became vibrations. Vibrations became frequency. And in moments, the entire golf course was resonating like a galactic crystal bowl. The tension dissolved. The air went soft. The hexagon fairways gleamed brighter, as if blessed. And just like that, everyone from the richest man in the world to the cart girl making more than the head pro, walked back to their shots under a cleansed Sedona sky. Or they kept calling to her all afternoon, cart boys, hedge fund uncles, moms in visors with daughters hiding behind their calves. Nelly, we're your biggest fans. Nelly, my kid watches you before bed. Nelly, can we get a photo? Sarah from Sedona rolled her eyes at first, convinced every compliment was just some country club creep hitting on her impossibly pretty valet driver. She whispered to herself about fake rich vibes and thirsty dad energy until a junior girls team rounded the bend like a flock of bright birds, visors tilted, Sharpies out, one of them actually crying when she saw Nelly. The kid's hands shook so hard the autograph wobbled. That's when the floor under Sarah's cynicism cracked. The air behind Nelly's head brightened. Not a cartoon halo, but the cold, precise flare of a diamond plane igniting at the base of the skull. It wasn't attention, it was reverence. It wasn't a valet, it was the sacred feminine hiding in plain sight, disguised as the #1 golfer in the galaxy. The realization hit Sarah like a gong. She pivoted from side-eye to worship so fast she nearly dislocated a chakra. "Oh my God, goddess, I am so sorry," she blurted, then again and again, apologizing between holes, during tee boxes, while climbing in and out of the cart, tripping over her own gratitude. She tried to braid Nelly's hair on the way to the next tee. She pressed a thumb-sized Sedona seed crystal into Nelly's palm for permanent short game protection, non-transferable, lifetime warranty by the universe. She insisted on calling her Lady of the Fairways like a medieval herald. Nelly, consummate pro, smiled through it, eyes a little wide, ponytail swishing, whispering thank yous, like she'd stumbled into a cult that meant well and had decent snacks. The hexagon-cut fairways of the crystalline chalice glowed around them, perfect emerald honeycomb cells stitched to the earth by Skynet precision mowers, irrigation veins humming like a living motherboard beneath the turf. From above, the course was a green microchip. From the ground, it felt like geometry had pulled rank on nature, and nature had agreed because the membership checks cleared. Elon, who was not Elon, lingered in the cart's shadow with his Tom Fords reflecting the sun in tight, weaponized flashes, pretending to scroll a yardage app while the right lens quietly recorded 8K. John, Diamond Hands Del Vecchio, hummed some Gregorian golf chant he swore he'd learned at St. Andrews. He hadn't. And, by accident or omen, the idol of a distant fairway mower synced to his pitch. The ground gave back a soft sub-bass thrum you felt in your sternum. Sarah looked down and nodded like the ancestors had just RSVP'd. "Okay," she said, climbing out of the cart and motioning them to the center of a perfect hex tile. "We're doing this right." She lined Nelly up dead center, barefoot on the emerald geometry, then grabbed Elon, who's not Elon, and Diamond Hands by their sleeves until all four formed a crooked compass. The sky was hot and clean. The gallery hung back, hushed, the way people go quiet around lightning before they decide whether to be afraid. "For the record," Nelly said softly, "I've never done any drugs." "This isn't drugs," Sarah said, fishing in her satchel. "This is remembrance." She drew out a vape like a holy relic, crystal casing, liquid inside the color of a newborn star, the mouthpiece cool as riverstone. When she thumbed it awake, the chamber glowed from within, a slow inhale of nebula. The scent that bloomed was impossible. Storm ozone after a desert strike, crushed sage, and the exact green of fresh-cut fairway at first light. Nelly hesitated, looked at Sarah's open palm, then at the semicircle of girls still hugging their visors a hole back. A little smile crept in. "If it's remembrance," she said, "I'll try anything twice." She took a pull, gentle, curious, and exhaled a ribbon that didn't dissipate. The vapor lifted, then curled upward like it had been waiting for instructions, unwinding into a spiral that mapped itself perfectly over the hex tile beneath their feet. The lines on the grass glinted faintly, catching the coil like teeth on a gear. Elon muttered, "Here we go," behind his mask. Diamond Hands forgot to breathe. Sarah closed her eyes and put her forehead to the back of Nelly's hand like she was kissing the engine of a comet. "Lady of the Fairways," Sarah whispered, voice steady now. "Forgive 4 holes of blindness. We see you." The spiral grew. What started as a ribbon became a column, then a transparent screw turning slowly through the air, threading sky to turf. The synced mower idle deepened, harmonizing with Diamond Hands' ways chant until it felt like the whole course had found a key it had been hunting for since sunrise. A Skynet drone drifted lower, curiosity overriding programming, lens dilating until it looked less like a camera and more like an eye. Nelly blinked. The pupils widened a fraction, then settled, a calm rolling across her face like a tide laying down glass. She wasn't high. She was awake. Behind her head, the diamond plane flare steadied to a precise radius. A cold crown measured in micrometers. Even Elon's lenses stopped recording for a heartbeat. His code deep under the sunglasses, pausing to make space for something it couldn't name. Feet rooted, Sara said, breath even. On my count, remember what you were before they told you what to be. The hex tile brightened. The honeycomb around it caught the light and passed it cell to cell like a stadium wave across the course. Moms on a distant fairway looked up, confused by the way the grass suddenly behaved like a field of little mirrors. In the VIP tent, Crispin Vale lowered his champagne and frowned at the sensation of his spine being gently tuned. The vapor column tightened one last notch. The temperature dropped a degree. Somewhere beyond the red rocks, a hawk cried, and the echo came back twice. Hole in one, Sara murmured, eyes still closed. But not the kind you think. The spiral tipped. The air didn't break so much as fold, like a page turning without a hand. Sound stretched, clink of a club, pop of a cork, a girl's gasp from 2 holes over, all pulled thin, then threaded back together on a new loom. The hexagon under their feet thrummed once, clean and bell pure, answering something that had just called from the other side of the veil. Nelly's fingers tightened around the seed crystal. Elon's mask fluttered in the slipstream of a pressure that wasn't wind. Diamond Hands, chant clicked into a rhythm older than his mouth. Sara opened her eyes, and for a fraction of a second, every line in the world aligned. The fairway grid, the drone's trajectory, the cut of Nelly's shadow, the seam in Elon's bandana, the faint scar on Sara's wrist from a life she'd almost remembered last week on a roof under a stubborn cloud. Then, silence. Not empty, expectant. Somewhere a marshal radioed a question he couldn't finish. Somewhere a sprinkler decided not to turn on after all. The gallery leaned forward without knowing why. Okay, Nelly said, voice calm and oddly bright, like she just found her balance on a moving ship. Again, Sara said, and smiled like a lock hearing the right key. The hex tile answered with a shimmer you could almost taste. The column's last twist seated itself. The fairway held its breath. Golf 5, the swing heard round the multiverse, the final chapter of the Crystalline Chalice Invitational. No one remembers who hit first. Not really. Some say it was Nelly, who, after taking her second hit of Stardust vape, began levitating 6 inches above her tee box, her driver spinning slowly beside her like a celestial hula hoop, untouched by gravity or hand. Others insist it was Elon, who was still not Elon, who connected with a 6-dimensional golf ball that split into 12 temporal copies mid-flight, each version tracing a different arc into a parallel Sedona. The only certainty is this: the tournament was no longer about winning. It was about surviving. By 4:04 p.m., the entire field, all 72 players, 18 caddies, 3 cloned alpacas, 6 cart girls, and 2 Johnson brothers were utterly, completely blasted on Stardust. The vapes had been passed out like communion wafers by a mysterious volunteer known only as Nodak V, who arrived in a golf cart that hummed the theme song to Interstellar and disintegrated after handing out the last cartridge. Each vape hit tasted different, not just from person to person, but memory to memory. One bite of your grandmother's chocolate pie in the summer of '94. A first kiss in a thunderstorm. That time you saw a UFO, but no one believed you. The scent of a lost lover's scarf. Stardust didn't get you high. It made you remember too much at once. And then the course responded. The hexagon fairways buckled softly, rippling like pond water. Flags began bending toward the ground in slow reverence. Bunkers of crushed rose quartz spun in place like galaxies forming in real time. The scoreboard at hole 9 blinked, fuzzed, and displayed a single word. Remember, Diamond Hands had taken off all his clothes and was speaking fluent Sumerian to a goose near the water hazard. The goose nodded back solemnly, then flew away backward. Sara stood barefoot atop a raised hex tile that now pulsed with soft gold light, Her eyes rolled back, muttering equations that hadn't been written yet. The words fell from her lips like rain. Phi to the eighth, divide by breath, transpose the ache, arch the death. Nelly had entered what could only be described as a quantum flow state. Her backswing had taken 32 minutes so far. She hadn't blinked once. Her club hovered behind her head, electrons orbiting it like loyal dogs. From the sidelines, the junior girls' team wept openly, chanting in unison, "She is the Axis! She is the Axis!" Crispin Vale was curled in the fetal position beneath the VIP tent, mumbling prayers in corporate tax code. Subsection 4401K, give us our quarterly bread, deliver us from Q4 projections. Then the drones showed up. Not Skynets, not Elon's. These were ancient, bronzed, humming, shaped like dodecahedrons etched with moving runes. They floated in from the sun itself, refracting time behind them like warm jello. No one summoned them. They simply knew. A child from the gallery, barefoot, no VIP wristband, unknown to anyone, walked calmly onto hole 18 with a crystal tea in one hand and what looked like a glowing foam ball in the other. The crowd parted without instruction. He placed the tea, set the foam, and looked up. "Someone has to close the loop," he said. Then he handed the club to Nelly. She blinked once. Just once. Then, like gravity had finally released its apology, she swung, and everything shattered. Not violently, like music does when it's too beautiful to stay in one piece. The ball exploded into colour, not light. The fairways fractaled outward like they'd been hiding new dimensions under the grass. Every lake turned into a mirror. Every mirror showed a version of yourself that never stopped playing. The hex tiles lifted. The chalice at the centre of the course revealed itself, hovering 3 feet above a bunker shaped like the Eye of Ra. It wasn't crystal, it wasn't metal, it was memory. The liquid inside glowed like melted lullabies. A voice, not male, not female, echoed across the course. Open quote, "Tournament complete. Reality score 72 under par. The veil has been rethreaded. Please return your vape to the boy." Close quote, Diamond Hands wept. Elon vanished. Literally just blinked out, leaving only a tweet on his bandana that read, "Still not Elon." Sara knelt. The girl from hole 6 who had cried into her Sharpie walked onto the fairway and kissed her forehead. And as the sun dipped and Starlink drew pink spirals over the sky, the crystalline chalice folded inward, not destroyed but archived, as if it had only ever existed for this one swing. The boy collected the empty vapes. Nelly turned to him and said, "What was your name again?" He smiled, "Doesn't matter," and walked into the sunset carrying a golf ball that now pulsed like a baby universe. Final score, love won, so did light. The rest was just par for the course. End of tournament, end of book. Start of remembrance.